So if you didn't check out the last video, I recommend you go check that out, because that's part 1 and this is part 2. I talked about what a hash map was and pretty much, everything you need to know about it. So in this tutorial, we're going to put what you learned in that video to use. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is construct a main method. So public static void main string array args. Great. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is actually make a hash map. So let's do that. So hashmap is a class, so you can make it just like you can make a scanner or a random object. You can make hashmap the same way. I'm going to name my hashmap hashmap, and I'm going to set it equal to a new hashmap. And it's going to give us errors, and that's because we forgot to import it. So if you're using Eclipse, you can just go ahead and do Command-Shift-O or Control-Shift-O if you're on Windows. I'm on Mac though. And not hashmap, hashmap. And if you're not using Eclipse, or for some reason you have to hand type your code in, you can just say import java.util.hashmap. That's the same thing. Now, if you're using another IDE, I'm pretty sure it has its methods as well. So for the hash map, what we're going to do is, as you can see, it's giving us some yellow lines. Now, the yellow line here is telling us that we're not using the hash map, so we can deal with that later when we use it. But these ones are telling us that it doesn't like the raw type. Hash map is a raw type. References to generic type hash map KV should be parameterized. But essentially, a parameterized type is telling the data structure what it should be storing. So right now, the hash map can store literally any value that exists. Any ones that you make or any ones that Java already has, you can store them. So right now, it's not going to work too well, as in it can get real confusing real quick. So it's good practice to go ahead and set, it's a good practice to tell the hash map what it should be expecting. And the way we can do that is simply by adding these angular brackets. Same way we do with the array list. However, the hash map does things a little differently. If you remember seeing the error here, it'll give it to us again. It's looking for this key value pair thing, this KV. So let's go ahead and include them. And if you forgot, KV basically stands for key value. So we need to tell Java what key value pairs, or what the data type for the key and what the data type for the value should be. Now for this, I'm going to say, I'm going to do strings for my key. And for my value, I'm going to say, let's go ahead and store an integer. So what I want to do is, I'm just going to leave a note for myself. So I'm going to say key is going to be like a name, or a name of a person, and value is their age, we'll say. So let's go ahead and do some stuff. So the first method that we talked about in the slides video was the put method. So let's go ahead and put some values on the hash map. So hashmap.put, it's a simple method. It's this third one here. Let's go ahead and say the first person we're going to add is Kenny. And he's going to be like 12. The next person we're going to put is, let's say, Bob. He's going to be 18. And we're going to add George, and George can be, let's say he's 14. So we have 3 people in the hash map, so now let's go ahead and do some stuff with them. So if we go ahead, and the first thing that we can do with the hash map, which I did not talk about in the slides tutorial, was if we type in a print statement, system.out.println, and we type in the name of the hash map we want to print out, it'll print out the whole hash map, every value in it, and the key that it's paired with. So if we run the program now, then you will see that we get Bob is equal to 18, George is equal to 14, and Kenny is equal to 12. And this is basically pairing the keys up with their designated values. So now let's go ahead and use the next get method. This is if we want to get a very specific value, a key value pair, or a specific value using a key. So printing out the whole hash map will give us everything. If we only want to get one thing, like let's say I want to print out Bob's age, I can say Bob's age is, and then I can print out hashmap.get, and then I can just say Bob. And that makes things much easier. And as a control, I'm going to show you what happens if we do the same thing, but replace the b, that's not what I want to do, if we replace the b here with a lowercase b. So these are essentially doing the same thing, except one of them is a capital B and one of them is a lowercase b. We're going to see if it matters or not. So we're going to go ahead and run the program again. And as you can see, we get Bob's age is 18, that's correct, but then we get Bob's age is null. So why is that? That's because when we specify, basically the keys are case sensitive if you're doing strings. And if you're doing characters too, because a capital A is actually a different value than a lowercase a. That's why, they're different. So when we do this, obviously it's going to be a little interesting because case sensitive. So if you're going to set keys that are strings or characters, be sure that you know what you're doing and don't mess it up by doing some kind of a, by doing some kind of a case sensitive mistake. Now, you can obviously make a method that converts everything to lowercase, and that way, everything will be fine. Like, if you're using user input, you can convert everything to lowercase and then do it that way. But that's not what we're going to do in this video, so. And as you can see, when we tried to get a key value, or a value that didn't exist in the hash map, it didn't give us an error, like the way array list will give us an index out of bounds error. Instead, it gave us null. And null, if you don't know in Java, simply means nothing. So it doesn't exist. Like, this is null. That's bull. This is null. It's a keyword, so. So, now we talked about the get method. Now let's talk about the remove method, because that was the one that was next in line. The remove method is also self-explanatory. We're going to make another print statement for this, and we're just going to say, Kenny used to be, and then we're just going to say hashmap dot remove, or actually wait, we're going to say Kenny was, and then we're just going to say remove, and we're going to say Kenny. Okay, so we're removing Kenny, and then as a control, we're just going to go ahead and print out the hash map again, just to show you guys that he is really being removed. And just to make the code a little cleaner, I'm just going to go ahead and comment out what we don't need. And so let's go ahead and print this out. And if you don't know, for some reason, commenting is like text, so whatever. So as you can see, oh yeah, whoopsies, I accidentally commented out what we did need, like this put thing here. But I meant like we don't need this, so. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this normally. As you can see, it says Kenny was 12, and when we print out the hash map, we don't see Kenny in there. He's gone. We erased Kenny. So, and then finally, I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this remove thing altogether because we're gonna do something else with Kenny. Sorry, Kenny. But we're gonna say instead of removing Kenny, let's go ahead and let's say Kenny, it was his birthday the other day. So Kenny was, and then we're going to say hashmap.replace Kenny, and then we can say, we'll say 13. We're not going to do anything too complicated. And then let's say he was whatever he was, so 12, but now he is, and instead of saying 13, we can just say hashmap dot get, and then we can say Kenny. Because if you remember, the program runs from top to bottom, so it'll start at the top here and it'll go to the bottom, and it reads left to right. So it'll start here with this, and then it'll move on to this. So if we have two methods on the same line, like in this case, it'll run this one on the left first, this replace one, and then this one on the right. So instead of this being 12 and then it replacing, it should replace first, so we should get 13. And running that, we see that's exactly what happens. Kenny was 12, but now he's 13. So, yeah. And one final method that we're going to talk about is the size method. So if I wanted to, I could print out the size of the hash map. So hashmap.size. Let's actually clear all this before we start. There we go. So hashmap.size. Now if we run this program, boom, we get 3 because we added 3 guys. And there are a ton of methods that HashMap has to offer. I mean, when I say ton, I mean way more than 4. There's a lot. A lot of them you don't actually use in your day-to-day life, or rather, if you are going to use HashMap a lot, then it's good to know them. But these are the 4 main ones that I feel like everyone should know if they're going to be using HashMap. There are a couple more, and we will eventually talk about more methods in the future when the need arises. But for now, these are the main 4 that I want you guys to know. Okay, thank you guys for watching this SAPP coding tutorial. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comment section below. If you like the video, go ahead and leave a like. Subscribe, do whatever you want to do to show your appreciation. And yeah, we will talk in the next video. Goodbye.